Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Monday, August 25th. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris. On this episode, we have a ton of news to catch up on. We learned that Zack Wheeler has been diagnosed with thoracic outlet syndrome. We'll talk about the long-term outlook with his recovery now that we know that that's part of the injury package there. Samuel Basallo signed an extension over the weekend. I think anytime we pre-record a Friday episode, which is very rare, it guarantees chaos on Friday morning. So one of the game's most exciting prospects already getting a long-term deal that buys out a couple of free agent years with Baltimore. We're going to take a look at where the money went. Shane Bieber was a big pickup this weekend because he is back. He looked really good as well. We'll break that down. So tons and tons of news. Plus, Eno was on a plane to Saberseminar and back. We'll talk about some of the interesting presentations Eno saw during his time there. So this episode might be 8 hours long. I don't know. I'm apologizing to our producer, Brian Smith, in advance. Eno, let's
some good
start.
visuals. You may want to watch this on YouTube.
Oh, there's at least two that you're going to be really excited about, but I think we're going to go 3 for 3 on visuals today. Let's start with some baseball news you should know. Zack Wheeler, we know his season is over, and now we know that he's got thoracic outlet syndrome, which we're learning a lot more about thoracic outlet syndrome over time. It's generally a very tough injury to come back from, but we do have some recent success stories, probably most notably Merrill Kelly. And the reason is there are a few different variations of thoracic outlet syndrome that a player can actually have. So there's neurogenic, venous, and arterial. And venous is the type that Wheeler has, and that is the air quotes easier of the three to potentially come back from. Now, the timetable is still a 6 to 8 month recovery post-surgery. And since Wheeler previously had surgery to remove a blood clot, there's still a lot of just genuine health concerns that
they may have to recover from that
place.
last surgery before they can even have this surgery.
Right.
Most of the return, that stuff that I looked at said 10 months. I think that would be a good number to put in your head. And really, to be safe with a guy like this, you might go 12, So I wouldn't expect, if I was putting the over-under on innings for him next year, it might be 50. It might be a pretty small number. We also have a return to excellence percentage that's around 75 to 80%. So there's just a chance that he's never the same again. And what's weird about that is that when you start looking at the actual names that have had it, you can't square the 80% that I've seen in peer-reviewed studies with major league success stories. So I think maybe to some extent, some of these return to success stories are talking about college pitchers and other pitchers that maybe, the bar for returning all the way back to where you were before isn't quite being measured correctly by these studies, because if you look at the actual names of people that have had them, there's a lot more bad than good. Josh Beckett had one good season after he had it. Mike Foltynewicz had a couple good seasons after it. Aaron Cook was pretty good after it, but then it really, ended the careers of a lot of people as well.
Steven Strasburg, he's never really come back. He had one start, I believe, after his surgery, and that was it. So Matt Harvey's career was never the same afterwards. And again, these are different types in some instances too, so that's a factor. It's really hard to know what
Chris
the outcome's
Carpenter's
going to be.
career was not good for Jared Walsh. Markelle Fultz in basketball had it and came back. So, but like Dylan G, there's a lot of people. Phil Hughes's career was ended by it. So, I think there's some percentage of end of career possibility. Now, Wheeler is one of the best pitchers on this group, and I think he's had better health outcomes than Strasburg. So you're hoping that he can come back and maybe have like a Beckett type season. Beckett may have ended his career. He might have been able to sign another contract, but Beckett had like a pretty full career that made pretty good money for him at the time. He had rings and stuff. So, it's possible that he just was like, just an early done for other reasons. But one of the most recent ones that had the same kind as well as Kelly and Wheeler was Alex Cobb. And I mean, basically what they're doing is it's compression at the top there. It gets really crowded where the top rib is, and there's a vein coming through and nerves coming through and muscles. And as a pitcher, your muscles there are getting really strong. So there's a compression there. And I forget what pitcher we were just talking about that was going to have surgery to relieve compression, but there is a thing where you kind of get too big for your body, like your muscles start to crowd things. And what happens there is either the nerve is rubbing against the rib, or the muscles are pinching it against the rib, and or the vein there. And what they do is they get rid of the rib, and it is brutal. So I talked to Alex Cobb, and this is a direct quote from Alex Cobb. And I had him rank his surgeries once for just a little bit. And he said thoracic outlet was the worst. He's had like 6 surgeries, and he said thoracic outlet was the worst. And this was his description. They can't saw that rib, Cobb said with a wince. There are so many nerves that they have to go in, open it up, and take a wrench and break it off. On the part of the rib that I do have, that, by the way, he gave to his father for Father's Day, it's all jagged on the edges. You can see where they just snapped it off. When I woke up, it felt like a shotgun went off right there. I woke up from the surgery and immediately recoiled like I'd been shot, and I was on meds. So my heart goes out to Wheeler. Like, this is an uncomfortable, painful time of his life for the next month or so at least. And then he's going to have to rework a lot because sometimes I have to take muscles out there. So there has to be like a sort of building back up to strength in there. Plus your body's like, where's this bone that's normally here? So, there's just a lot going on here. And I feel so terrible because Wheeler had been such a great pitcher for so long. I feel badly for the Phillies organization, and I wish him the best, but I'm a little bit on the pessimistic side about this. I think if he came back and was as good as Merrill Kelly after this, I would actually consider that success. But that's not who Zack Wheeler was before this.
It's so hard to set expectations because the bar is already so much higher for Wheeler than it is for most of the other names we mentioned as part of the conversation so far. And Wheeler was having a career best year, I think. I mean, a 33.3% K rate.
And what if he never wins a Cy after this? I'd just be like, God.
Yeah, a guy that, I think because his deal runs through 2027, he can at least pitch that long, it seemed, and would probably get to 2,000 innings. And in the modern game, maybe he had put together enough of a resume
I think
in the back half of his career to be a Hall of
case.
Famer. So he might still be in that mix anyway, even if we don't see him back for a while. It's a brutal,
yeah, he should probably,
injury for him.
to make that case better, he should probably pitch another 400 innings or 500 innings, and
Yeah, but all the best to Zack Wheeler as he continues down the road of recovery and has that surgery here in the near future. We talked about it at the time that the blood clot was found for Zack Wheeler, but Aaron Nola comes back to basically slot right back in. His first 2 starts back have been a lot better, and I saw by the model numbers, stuff plus, location plus, pitching plus, as good or better than we've seen from him at any point this year across the board. So do we have the good version of Aaron Nola back was a question I saw bouncing around in the Discord this weekend. What did you see from Nola, especially in that outing on Saturday against the Nats?
I mean, some of it's really simple. He threw 92.6. He sat 92.6 against Washington, and that was by far the best of the season. It's not that great compared to former years. Even last year, he was 92.5 for the year. If he can get to 92 plus again, I can believe in him. Another thing that he did most recently is throw fewer cutters. At least he did in that second Washington game. And I think the model likes that because it's an amuse-bouche, a change of pace. But it's not his best fastball. So he should be careful, I think, with that one. And I think like a 5 to 10% usage on that pitch will be good. The knuckle curve is there, and that's what he's always done. And the velo being back is good. And I think this is probably, if he is throwing the cutter 5 to 10% of the time, that's probably his best fastball mix. I'm into him. The only thing, and this is super unscientific, but he is maybe the biggest every other year guy. Have you noticed
do that?
This?
Yes, I have.
It's so weird.
The thing that's never made sense to me is the type of pitcher that Aaron Nola
seems really steady.
It should make him year to year as consistent as any pitcher can be. And I feel like the ratios are volatile. And my explanation for years has been home park does boost homers. The home run rate fluctuates with Nola. And I think most of his variation just comes from what's happening on batted balls in the air. That has been my very simple explanation that helps me sleep at night without worrying about Aaron Nola's ratios. Is like, hey, it's just home run rate, and home run rate can be pretty noisy. That's at least been my baseline explanation for most of his career.
One. I don't use Sierra as much as I should. There was some recent research that suggested it's one of the best single predictive metrics. And
man, I love Sierra. I'm surprised you don't use it more.
For the last 3 years for Phillies, for Nola, it's 375, 368, 374. That's actually really like steady.
That's what I expect. I would expect that sort of number from him, just because it's a difficult place to pitch, but a good whip because he doesn't walk a lot of guys.
That's what I believe in. I believe in like sort of a 3.8, 3.9 ERA, decent whip, and wins. So yeah, he's definitely should be rostered in all leagues. There's no question of that.
Yep, still good, and looks a little bit better now than he did earlier this year. So at least that is a welcome return for the Phillies as they try to navigate life without Zack Wheeler here down the stretch and into the postseason. Perhaps the most surprising news from the time that you were gone, Samuel Basallo got an 8-year, $67 million extension. There's some performance escalators that could bring that up to, I think, $88 million, if memory serves correctly. A lot of the reaction to this has been, so Adley's getting traded? And my thought was, are we sure about that? Like, what about extending Basallo would, like, force you to actually trade Adley Rutschman? I think if you want to, address your needs and say, we've got a guy who's in his next 2 arbitration years in 26 and 27 that plenty of other teams would trade for, and we want to add pitching. Sure, you could add Adley Rutschman to the list of compelling players that the Orioles might trade. But when you consider the opportunity to play both Rutschman and Basallo between catcher, first base, and DH, and maybe that some of the problems with Adley last season and this season are the result of being worked very hard behind the plate, maybe the optimal outcome for this team is to, in fact, keep Adley Rutschman alongside Samuel Basallo and to just let it work with those two in tandem. I'm curious if you feel the way I do about this, or if you're more on the side of the masses who think that this will be a winter in which Adley Rutschman is dealt somewhere else.
I am not, like, of all the things that I could be good at seeing with my eyes and scouting, I think how good of a receiver a catcher is not near the top of the list. So I don't know that I feel comfortable saying he is or is not a catcher, but I do feel comfortable saying that this deal, whether or not he is a catcher, was a factor for both sides. And I think there's at least some element of nervousness by the player himself that maybe he is not a great catcher. We know that Fangraphs has a 30 present, 40 future field on Samuel Basallo. And we know that Keith Law said he's got at least a 70 arm and is athletic enough to become a 55 receiver. Rutschman has got to be better than a 55 receiver, is how I see it. And so I think this deal suggests that Basallo is good enough to hit and be anywhere on the mound, anywhere on the field that they can fit him, and that might not be catcher. That's sort of reading between the lines here. Is like, why do you take a deal like this if you think you're going to be like a frontline catcher in the league? I think you go year to year and try to get a big deal. You sign this deal if you're like, what if I'm just a DH, or what if they demote me a bunch and I have to wait 2 years till Rutschman is gone to come up to be the regular catcher? Why don't I sign this deal, make money while that's happening, and then I can play wherever.
Yeah, well, and I think he's 21, so Samuel Basallo can hit free agency again before he turns 30, even with this extension, this long-term deal. And he might be the kind of hitter that teams are still really excited about in his late 20s.
If he has that great bat speed. Yeah.
Right. So with elite bat speed and multiple paths to other spots, and he's played first base during his time in the minors. They haven't started him there yet in the big leagues, but if you look at this depth chart, Ryan Mountcastle, one more year. Yeah. Is he even guaranteed to get tendered a contract for 2026? That could open up a lot of playing time. Mountcastle's hitting like 259, 295, 366. Like, do you tender him in his last arbitration year? Not necessarily.
I definitely shop him, and I would figure I wouldn't get much interest. And so then the question would be to tender or not. Yeah.
Right. So then you got that spot open, got the DH spot option, and then I think it's better to have two guys that you like behind the plate. And I think we've talked about Gary Sanchez's defense, his reputation as a Yankee amongst Yankees fans versus the reality. And Sanchez fits exactly into the slot metric you talked about a couple of weeks ago. His mistakes are mistakes that everyone can see. They look awful. Right, yeah. But he's actually not a bad defensive catcher.
Basallo might actually be a little bit different, where he has a 70 arm, so everyone's like, "Oh yeah, he's a catcher. Look at that arm. Look at that rocket." And he may not be the best framer, which is a way to lose value. But another saying across baseball is you can never have too much catching depth. So from the Orioles standpoint, you're like, yeah, let's sign him. He can maybe catch twice and DH 3 or 4 times a week, and boom, like we can have a bad framer twice a week. We put him in when he's catching a high stuff guy or something. You know what I mean? Like, we have guys that we can pair him with. So, yeah, I think this makes sense. Obviously, this makes sense from the organizational standpoint, because they're locking in a guy with some elite bat characteristics to one of these ones where they get a couple free agency years free. And we talked about this deal. Even if you fail on a couple of these deals, you sign 4 of these and 2 of them pay for the other 2 and then some. In terms of surplus value and all that. I get that. I think from the player standpoint also, he gets a bump now. He's getting paid like $1 million a year for the next 3 years instead of $700,000. And that's only a little bit, but it's like, we don't know his situation. Maybe, he's come from poverty, and like that might be the difference between buying his mom a house right now and like getting her out of a terrible situation right now, So, and then I think for him, he comes out at 29. And also, when you sign these deals, you incentivize the team to play you, right? Don't you?
Yeah. You're not going to play games. You're just
it's like the Jackson Chourio thing. It's like he signed the contract, and then he was the starting center fielder on opening day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be tough to do the accurate forecast until we get to like February, maybe late January, as far as how much playing time to expect, just because the shape of the roster can change a lot between now and then.
Is Mayo playing third? He's not, is he? He's just playing first.
I got to double check where Mayo's been playing the last couple of weeks. Haven't been keeping much of an eye on the O's, but I think you're still going into keeper dynasty situations right now under the assumption that Basallo is going to play at a top 10 sort of level volume-wise for a catcher, if not higher, because of his bat. And then at the high end, are you talking about an elite hitter, a very good hitter? Like how quickly? That's the other part of it. How quickly is this bat going to play? Because this extension happened so early in his big league career that we're forecasting a lot of this performance based on some absurd age-to-level performances as he came to the upper levels of the Orioles system.
Yeah, and he has interesting bat tracking where he does not have much tilt. So We talked about his comps. There are Junior Caminero, but also another comp that's like pretty close to Basallo is Jack Caglione.
Mm.
You know, in terms of flat swing, you know, a little bit aggressive, not the greatest swing decisions, flat swing, elite bat speed. That's Jack Caglione. So I still believe in Jack Caglione. So I don't think that's a negative comp necessarily, but it does tell you that the adjustment period is not the same for these. Junior Caminero has just been lights out, and Jack's had a little bit of a problem.
Yeah. Jack's still on rehab assignment at last glance, too.
And I don't know why, dude, because he's hitting really well and they need him. I don't know what they're looking for.
I think ticking both boxes in terms of making sure he feels good physically, but also to make sure confidence is all the way back, too, given how his big league career started. Maybe there's some element of that, wanting to make sure that they feel he's truly ready to come back and contribute, because I think once they bring him back, they're going to want to lean on him pretty heavily. If you got Adam Frazier in your lineup, you could use Jack Caglione, with all due respect to Adam Frazier, right? It's a Royals team that needs power, needs to find more ways to put runs on the board.
He just got astray.
Sorry, Adam. It's not. It was in the group text.
He just woke up in bed and was like, what?
What just happened? Yeah. One other bit of good news up top here. Yordan Alvarez is going to return from the IL on Tuesday. At least he's supposed to. I've been told by listener Jules that every time I talk about the Astros, something bad happens. I hope that's not the case this time. I hope.
How many won't he return? Well, Yordan Alvarez has been going on forever.
I don't think I have any sort of sorcery or ability to impact outcomes that way. But hopefully in this case, we will actually see Yordan Alvarez finally back. Was he stealing bases on his rehab assignment? Did I see that right?
No. What?
I believe that. Well, just hey, you want to make
Feeling
sure
good.
it's all working. Yeah, sure enough. There you go. Got a stolen base at AA and on his rehab assignment.
He's hitting 467 with a 267 ISO, 733 select. Can you imagine being a AA pitcher and Yordan Alvarez is rehabbing?
I literally cannot.
Can I not pitch today, sir?
I mean, I don't know if anybody ever really noticed, but I was the kind of guy when I was playing slow pitch softball, playing chuck and duck, when I played on the infield, I would get pretty far back on the dirt, man.
Yeah.
Like
still walking.
I wanted the extra couple of splits, the extra few half seconds it might be for reaction time for some of the guys that come up and hit the ball hard. So can you imagine? I can't even imagine where I would want to play if Yordan Alvarez was in the box, out at the fence, warning track.
Oh God, they just I think they want me to be the head coach for my youngest Little League ball team.
There you go. See, I think you should do it.
Yeah, I'll probably do it, but yeah, schedule is tough. So.
Schedule's tough, but try to talk Eno into becoming a head coach for his youngest in the Discord. Join now at the link in the show description.
Here's another reason that I'm a little nervous about it and don't want to embarrass myself, because I did embarrass myself this weekend at the Saberseminar. I was demonstrating a new use of a current technology in baseball. Tyler White has this thing called a blood flow restriction machine. And basically, it's a dynamic sensor in your arm that can sense what your blood pressure is in your arm, and it can maintain a 50% blood flow restriction in your arm while you're doing physical activity. So people use this in rehab right now, but he's developed a mobile unit with a longer cord so that you can actually throw a bullpen while you have it on. No, they don't usually sort of do it in the trainer's room. Now we can make this part of a throwing program. It felt amazing on my arm. I was achy a little bit from warming up. I put it on and felt immediately great in the arm. I felt super fast and strong, but this is what I looked like.
Yeah, let's see if we get some commentary on this video too. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the reason you tuned in today. This is Eno with the aforementioned sleeve throwing some pitches here. Let's see what we got.
Does not look good.
You want to take it off? One more.
You can see the little cord there. It's keeping blood pressure. Like it's almost like the blood pressure machine at the doctor's office.
That looked a little up and in for a righty too.
Oh yeah, Robert Stock says I pitched like I have a shoulder injury, and so the mechanics not good, but I felt good, and I could see. I talked to another team source who said, I'm nervous about this because the players love blood flow restriction machines so much that we have to kick them off of them now. So you're saying now you want to include this in their like on-field rehab and their throwing process, and he presented about possible hitting usage on the brace leg in the front. I was like, Jesus, like, this person was like, I don't know, this could be too much. But Tyler White's early findings are that basically one of the earliest findings that he could share with us was that they had a test group getting ready for games, and then a control group. And the test group threw at a lower velocity in the pregame bullpen, but at the same velocity in the game. So that's what he's pointing out, is that like you can use this machine to trick your brain into thinking you're doing a full workout without stressing the ligaments and some of the most used muscles as if it was a full workout. You can recruit more muscles and more blood and more, like your brain, just because it is like, why isn't there blood there? It like recruits more energy to that area. And so you get more out of throwing not as hard. And once he took it off, the pain was still gone, and I threw a lot harder. So I don't know. That was a very small little thing. It's very subjective, but they are studying it. And one thing that I find compelling about it is just it exists as a technology that we use in baseball. And he's just saying, let's use it a slightly different way. Like, let's use it as part of the throwing program and part of the return, not just as like a sort of therapeutical device, as is more of a like a throwing program, augmentation. And he thinks that it can really help reduce injuries. So I find it compelling, but I do know that around baseball, I think one of the things that's so hard is it's really hard to get into baseball, and so people have to self-market, when they have an idea. And so the one big trick that'll change baseball, like we all have a sort of a BS detector on that, in baseball. You're like, okay, yeah, this will be the thing, but everybody who wants to try and like make an impact on the sport or get somewhere, probably feels to some extent that they have to like maybe overmarket it a little bit to like get more attention and like get people to the trough, and like it's really hard. Like, so there's a sort of chicken and egg thing there. It's like the more they do that, the more people in baseball are like, and so it's like, I've been trying. I want the research. I may wait to write them on this until there's more readily available research, but they're in the middle of it. They're doing it with the performance lab, and they're working on that. So that was it was fun to show that off for people. It felt really great, so I'm at least intrigued by that, and it was a part of a just a group of interesting, different things that I saw at the Saberseminar. Stephen Sutton Brown from Baseball Prospectus did something about swing decisions and the information that a batter has available to them and what they use, the precision of the information that they use early on, what types of information they use to make their decision. He was using swing metrics in tandem with pitch metrics to kind of get a better sense of when they're making a decision and how. He, my sense of what he was doing is what the best baseball teams are doing, except that they have skeletal and biomechanical markers. So he does not have those. So his is sort of state of the art for what we have available to us. But if you were a team and you were studying this, why wouldn't you look at, for example, what did your hands do when that pitch at that moment, and that, what did your legs do at that moment during that pitch, but I found it really interesting. For other things that people might that have maybe some sort of fantasy impact to some extent. Kyle Lobner of Shepherd Express, I think it's a brewer site.
Shepherd Express is a local paper, I believe, in Milwaukee, like an independent paper.
Okay. So he writes about the Brewers, and he was fascinated with how Carlos Gomez, was like moved the most. Like he couldn't stop moving. He would Carlos Gomez was talking to him about like tracking down a foul ball from center field, and like Gomez was like, he was a home run
high
robber.
energy.
Yeah, and he was like stealing bases. So he was looking at Carlos Gomez and he was like, is that going to tire you out? So he did a study where he looked at the effect of bulk center field play on late game production. It was just a really simple thing. Like if you meet this high level of center field play with a lot of innings in center field, how do you do in the last 3 innings versus the first 6 innings? But what he found was there was a sample issue. And this is, I think, compelling to people who listen to us. We talked about load management. From 2000 to 2019, there were 174 center fielders with 600 plus PA. So that's about 9 a year, right? In the last 4 seasons, there have been 7, which is like 1.75 a year. So we are load managing our center fielders right now, and it may be because of stuff like this. The fantasy angle, Julio Rodriguez is the most affected among the current crop in terms of late game production and playing center field the most. Cody Bellinger is the least affected, but he also plays center field the least and has the least range out of all these guys. So his theory was he's not running to as many balls. He's not getting to as many balls, so he's not getting as tired. So that was interesting. Anthony Mui modeled pitch tunneling, and he basically created a model that predicted a swing that didn't have any information about pitches before it. And then he created another model that did have pitches before it. And he looked at the difference in predicted swings and misses. And one he found, some of the stuff that makes sense was that like curves and big shaped sliders were anti-tunnelers. So even Jake DeGrom's good curveball gets fewer swings and misses than expected because of its shape. It's not a great tunneling pitch. The best tunneling pitches, splitters. And splitters are not probably the best thing in Stuff Plus. Like Stuff Plus is probably not the best it might be the worst pitch that Stuff Plus is. Like Stuff Plus does the worst at evaluating splitters. So here you have splitters as big plus tunnelers. They added swing and miss for Logan Gilbert, who for some reason has a 97 Stuff Plus. Frankie Montas, Reed Garrett, Hurston Waldrop, they were all top splitters that added an extra 3% swinging strike rate based on just the tunneling alone. So I thought that was compelling. The Driveline guys, they did a couple studies. One was about projecting pitch design and optimal usage. So that was very much a training thing for them where they're like, what does this pitch need to look like and how would it fit into his arsenal and how much should he use it? So, I've often talked about like if I was running a team and I had a Stuff Plus, I would also have another model that was like peak Stuff Plus.
Right.
Like
what levers
Stuff
can you
Plus.
pull? Yeah.
Like what if we did this or what if we did this? Like, can you look at other pitchers and find comps and be like, oh, what you want to do is add 3 inches horizontal to the sinker, and then you could have this Stuff Plus, right? So on some level, that's what they're doing. But they also presented Connor Pelletier and Sam Ehrlich presented a bat path grade. So that was compelling. And I saw they have a power bat path grade and a contact one separate. Is something that I've advocated for because Luis Arias and Joe Adele are very different people. All right. So then here's a really fun one with a little story attached to it. So Ken Arneson wasn't there, but somebody from his organization, the Wind Applied Metrics, came. And so Wind Applied Metrics looks through all of the different directly observed wind statistics that they can get at around the ballpark at very different locations around the ballpark and within the ballpark. And they model the wind through that area. And so wind can be affected by structures nearby, buildings nearby. It can be affected by how big the back of the stadium is. There's wind shadows we've talked about. So they take their model that's like sort of a fluid dynamic model, and then they add in directly observed wind statistics, and they have these things that you might have been seeing on the Cubs use it, the A's use it, where they show you the wind patterns in the stadium at the moment of the game starting and where it's inflating distance on fly balls and where it might be deflating distance on fly balls. I find it really compelling because I think wind is one of the biggest sources of noise when it comes to how far a ball is hit. And they, in their presentation, they presented to us this Adley Rutschman homer, which is the most wind-aided homer on the year. And take a look at Adley Rutschman. He thinks, oh, that's not a home run. But Ryan Pepio says, oh, keep watching it. Keep watching it. Ball goes out. Outfielder says, I don't know. I thought I had that thing. I don't know.
Yeah, what just happened? Why did that go out? I thought I had that in front of the warning track by a few steps, and instead it's a homer?
So Wind Applied Metrics said that home run was aided 26 feet by wind. And, StatCast has a stat where it says that was a homer in 20 ballparks, but it doesn't take the wind into effect. It's saying that distance is a homer in 20 ballparks, but if you took the 26 feet of wind aid off, it'd be a homer in 0 ballparks, right? Mm-hmm. So they were making the case that they might want to put this wind information into the expected home run stats that we see on the cast. But there's a little bit more to the story that was really funny. So I was talking to Ryan Pepio recently when we were in town. We were talking about how much wind there is in his stadium in Tampa and how the size of the stadium, the fact that it's a little league ballpark, it does not have the wind shadow you normally do, so it's very wind affected. And Pepio was saying, oh yeah, we look up the board all the time to see how it's affecting our pitches. It affects their pitch shape. And I said, oh yeah, and that Adley Rutschman homer, dude, come on. And he goes, I know. And he said, I saw him after the game. We're friends. And he apologized to me. I just thought that was hilarious. I mean, he's had to apologize for hitting a non-homer off of his friend.
I mean,
he wouldn't have apologized if he hit a 500-foot tank. He would have said,
"No,
yo, what's up, Ryan?"
Yeah, it's a lot like I played tennis. If you hit a shot, hits the top of the net, changes direction, you win the point off of that shot. You feel bad. You apologize. There's like a kind of common understanding. Like players kind of like wave it off, like, "Hey, sorry, wasn't trying to clip the net. Just the bad bounce against you. Not good execution by me." That was that, but with a home run because 26 feet. I mean, when you talked about wind applications previously, I thought it would be very helpful.
3 feet or 5 feet or...
Yeah, I just thought it'd be helpful to have the real-time wind conditions in the dugout on one of the tablets all the time.
Oh.
Because you'd know going into
Put
that
this
inning,
ball in the air, dude, right now.
Top of the third. Like, oh, okay, look. Especially if it just gave you indicators relative to earlier. Like, oh, hey, the wind is picked up out to right field. That would inform things you'd be doing as a hitter. It would inform different things you're trying to do when you're pitching as well. Wouldn't you want that information at your disposal? I know you can get to the point where you're adjusting too much.
Yeah.
But I see that's an extreme situation with the 26 feet on the Rutschman homer. I see something like that and think maybe you don't want to ignore that completely. Or maybe Adam Ottavino's talked about it on our show before. There are some parks very different day versus night. Most parks are going to play different day versus night, but I think Citi Field has a huge difference in how it plays. Mm-hmm. I think you want that information available, and maybe it's not just hanging up there on the wall or sitting there on the back of the bench in the dugout, but maybe your coaches are aware of it and they're talking about it, and your catcher's aware of it and they're calling things a little bit differently and shifting strategies a little bit based on those conditions because you're accounting for them.
Yeah, I mean, like every pitch selection has a hopeful intended outcome, and Pepio got probably his hopeful intended outcome for that pitch, which is, I got it in on him. He pulled it, but wasn't in the air, but he wasn't able to get the right shape on it. He hit a pop-up, right? But maybe you reevaluate your pitch selection and your pitch design for outcomes in certain situations where you're like, a pop-up could be a home run right now. So let's stay down in the zone or let's stay away from him. You know, if we don't want him to go to right field right now, if we give up a single to left field, like we'd rather do that right now, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I do think that's the other side of it is just that there's a lot of information. There's also rules about what information you can have. So I don't know if they would be allowed to access that in game, or if there would even be the mental capacity to add that to all the things you're thinking about. Because you're also thinking about, what did Adley Rutschman do last time? What is Adley Rutschman good at? What am I good at? What am I bad at? What is he bad at? You know, so it's like,
yeah,
it's a lot.
and even within the framework of that maybe being important, how important is it relative to all the other factors you have to use within your game plan? It still
But if it's plus 26 feet, that's pretty important.
I think at plus 26 feet, that's what I'm saying. Is
passes that threshold.
It's almost like you just need threshold. At a certain threshold, you're like, okay, the weather's being weird enough. We actually have to account for it. Oh, the weather,
right? Like if it's a plus
10
1
miles
to
per
2
hour out,
feet.
like fine, whatever. It's 8 feet. We know, like it's just part of the.
Yeah, it should
90%
have, like,
of the time
really...
it's within the norms. But like, oh, we're getting a red indicator on the jet stream.
Yeah, it should
out
be
to
like
right
a
center field.
color-coded, very basic interface. Like, bang, it's like plus 20 to right field right now. Bang, bang.
That's what I'm saying. And then like old scouts are like, yeah, just look at the flags, idiot. Like,
and you're like, yeah,
there are wind indicators. They're all over the stadium. You're just not looking at them. Like, yeah, but the wind over there and the wind over there might not be the same.
One thing that they would say from the wind applied metrics is that, like, just because something's happening at the flag level does not actually mean it's the same thing that's happening at the fence level. So
right.
That's why they have these fancy models, is because wind is it's a fluid, so you can it moves, it hits things and it turns, you know. So yeah, so I would love to have that. If I was running a team, I would definitely have that in the dugout. Chris Imbrogno and Brian Mills, I think they're at Texas. They tried to model the improvement of player analysis in the age of data convergence. So their idea was that more and more teams are using the same inputs into their models. And so their argument was, over time, you should see fewer misses on player evaluation, you know, and you should see a sort of convergence. They did and didn't find, they found some aspects they, you know, didn't have the strongest effect. And I think what is really difficult about doing this is, in order to do this right, it needs to be a longitudinal study. So it needs to be about 20 years. But think about how different our player evaluation models have been over the last 20 years. So if you're going to use WAR, if you're going to use 2025 WAR to look at how teams were good at evaluation or not, going all the way back to 2005, well, framing wasn't in WAR in 2005. So at the time, they weren't even measuring framing. And so, but you're using 2025, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
the game changes.
You're trying to use
a
constant number, but the number, even WAR itself, was changing over time. So they might be the same relative to the WAR of their time. You know, you almost want to like use the one concomitant metrics that was used in this, you know, in that season, you know, and change it over time. So I think it's a really difficult study, but I thought it was a great question, which is that, like, and then something I've struggled with, and we've talked about a little bit, is just like the data going in is getting more and more ubiquitous to every team. And so our argument here, I think, has been the way that you separate yourself is how you implement it. You know, how good is your communication? How good is your organizational structure? You know, that sort of stuff. But the fact that they tried to study it, I give them so many kudos for that. Ben Resnick did one where he looked at a pitcher's ability to force bad swing decisions. So he just looked at swing decisions, and he looked at pitchers and looked at, you know, who was forcing bad swing decisions. The leaders were Andrew Chafin was number one, which I don't understand. But Blake Trinan, Michael Kopech, Mason Miller, and Andres Munoz were all in there. And so I kind of feel like there's a velo effect. He was calling it deception, but I'm going to force you to make bad decisions if I throw 100, because you have to make your decision faster and earlier.
I feel like you kind of just hit Chafin with a bit of a stray. The way I got Frazier before, because, and I had to look this up because I thought in my head, I'm like, yeah, okay, I think that kind of makes sense. I think of Chafin as just kind of funky, and it's his vibe and the hair and whatever.
Does he throw hard? He doesn't throw hard.
Well, no, but no, I meant like I thought he was more of a lower K rate, weak contact reliever. But if you look at his strikeout rates, look at his, going back to like 2019, 30.2%. There's a 28.9, a 24.1 is the low mark. 27.6, 28.1, 28.5. This year, 21.1. He's 35 now. Maybe this is the beginning of the end for Chafin. But those are higher strikeout rates than I thought I was going to see.
And higher than you'd expect from Velo. It's not a Velo effect. I mean, he topped out at the best year was 93.9. So, yeah. And stuff doesn't really like him, but maybe there's, I think that when you look at things like this, it's basically looking at results and not as much process. You're going to be confounding a couple different things. So you're going to have some guys who do it based on velocity, like Mason Miller, and then some guys who do it either with command or tunneling, like Andrew Chafin. So you're when you have a big population like that, there's different ways that they got to it. So I don't know that this succeeded in isolating any one sort of skill, but I thought it was interesting on the starter side. Michael King, Blake Snell, Sonny Gray, Chris Sale. Now, there's not a ton of really high-end velo there. Snell throws hard, Sale throws hard, but
Sonny Gray's sweeper's got to be a huge part of that. I'm just thinking, why are those guys all there? I mean, Sonny Gray's sweeper is one of the best sweepers around.
There's some good breaking balls on this list. And I feel like there could be some tunneling. There's some interesting release points. I don't know. There's not one thing that all four of those guys does that makes sense to me. The starter laggards, the ones who were bad at it, were Tanner Bybee, Frankie Montas, Matt Waldron, Ben Lively, Nestor Cortez, Michael Wacha, and Cal Quantrill. So there seems to be a velo effect. Other than Bybee, those are all bad velo guys.
Right. But like half of those guys are still kind of good somehow.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Lively, doesn't make any sense to me from any angle. So, the last one I wanted to highlight was that Maddie Landis of Future Sox did a great presentation. She presented on the reliever to starting pitcher conversion. She writes for Future Sox, and so she was looking at Griffin Jax, Lucas Erceg, and Mason Miller as possible conversions. And I agree in theory on all three. I think it was a great approach that she kind of looked at who could lose 5 to 10 points of stuff plus and still have good enough stuff plus, who had wide arsenals and who had decent command of those arsenals. And so that's how you make a list like that. And it's one I totally agree with. I will say that I personally am not sure that any of those three will do it. Maybe Erceg is the one that is possible, but the Royals have been stockpiling sort of 4, 5, 6, 7 starters, right? They traded for Bergert. They traded for Bailey Falter. They seem to have, they have Noah Cameron, so I feel like they have this like group of back end starters, and I don't think that they'll be rushing to convert Erceg. Jax on the Rays, I guess that's a wild card. I think every time I've talked to Jax, he's open to it. He wants to do it. And so it seemed like maybe just the Twins didn't want to do it. Maybe the Rays traded for him to turn him into a starter with the Shane McClanahan news, the fact that they traded away some of their starters. Maybe Griffin Jax is the guy. It seems like the Rays would try something like this. And I think with Mason Miller, I just think it's out. I think that's done. I don't think they're going to try that anymore. I think he said, I need some sort of financial guarantee before I really want to do that, because I've carved out something that's going to pay me well, as I'm doing right now. And if I do that and get injured and, then lose a bunch of career earnings, I thought it was a really matter-of-fact way to talk about it. And probably some people don't like that because it's not super team friendly. It's not like, aye, Captain, I'll do whatever you say. But I think it's a smart thing to say. So now maybe if the Padres want to sign him to some sort of extension or something, or and then try it, then maybe. So I would listen. If there was a contract news, I might listen. But I also think that the Padres just need a Robert Suarez replacement next year. And
more
this year
likely,
they have the best bullpen in baseball, and next year we still have Mason Miller.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like a lot of great presentations all around. The Erceg thing is interesting to me because he started pitching late. He was a third baseman. He wanted to be a two-way player when the Brewers drafted him. Started pitching, I think, was it Double-A in like 2020? He was 26 years old when he did it. It's only been a few years, so he's only been a pitcher for about 5 years. And it's just kind of odd because he's 30 years old. So there's a lot of different ways you could kind of see it going. He started pitching in 2021. And like the actual experience he has as a professional pitcher is much less than you'd expect for a 30-year-old. So the arm is relatively fresh. The arsenal's deeper than you expect. The control these last 2 years has probably been better than anyone would have expected at the outset. So there are a lot of indicators there that point to it being more of a possibility than anybody would have thought when he first started having success as a reliever 2 years ago. So I think it's a good pull.
Yeah, that's a good point too about the, I was thinking about, feel and like, oh, well, he doesn't have all the years of feel that the pitcher might develop in, pitching. But the other thing that you don't do if you haven't been pitching for a long time is you haven't cycled through all the different ideas. So like, do you think Lucas Erceg has tried a kick change yet? I don't know. But that's actually kind of compelling. Like maybe he adds a kick change to this and then boom, that's all he needed, which serves as a segue. That's my segue noise. I don't know if that's any good.
It's pretty good, I guess. So Shane Bieber is back, and yeah, he's got a new pitch. Let's take a look at it. If you're watching on YouTube, this is
that's nice.
That's nasty.
89 and just
89
straight down. That's a kick change, fellas.
Yeah, that's a pretty gross
also some
pitch.
New facial hair, it looks like.
Yeah. It's thin right now.
It's like a pirate. But no, he's a Blue Jay. And, I was looking at the different numbers. His arm slot has dropped. I think that's reduced some of the stuff numbers on his breaking pitches. However, the breaking pitches are moving fairly close to how they used to. He's never been a stuff plus guy. He's been a 90 stuff plus guy, 90, 91 for like the last 3-4 years. And this is the best changeup by stuff plus he's ever had. So I guess I'm fairly optimistic. Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good. And he looked like he had command, and if I had the $200 that people apparently still had somehow, I would have spent it on him.
Yeah,
I don't know how these people have $200 still.
I think it's a little bit like the scenario we described a week or two ago where it's like, I didn't get my guys earlier and now I might as well spend it so I don't end the season with $300 or $400 worth of fab. Look, what are you saving it for? So if you have it, spend it. I think he looked good, like really good, and maybe it is a difference maker down the stretch. Now you got home against the Brewers this week. I think if you picked him up, you're obviously using him for that. Like as good as that Brewers offense has been, you still look at the names on paper and say, I'm more likely to start a guy that I trust than not against that offense. Mm-hmm. It's at the Yankees.
That's
the first week of September. I think the second start, like the one against the Brewers, will inform just how comfortable you are throwing him in a tough park against a good lineup too. The fact that he gets the Brewers at home probably easily enough to just make him, a viable option there. So if you're ballparking Bieber based on what you saw, let's start at Brandon Woodruff. For the rest of the season, would you have rather had Brandon Woodruff start by start or Shane Bieber? And there's a little bit of related news on Woodruff. They ended up bumping him back from Sunday to Monday to give him 5 days rest again, which has been the normal progression for him since he was activated. They've been able to give him those extra days. But I would assume because the Jays have Eric Lauer and they've got a little depth right now, the Jays could actually handle Bieber in a similar way for a few turns if they want to, and they get the added benefit of a couple of off days on Thursdays. Actually, there's a lot of teams that have off days the next 2 Thursdays, the way the schedule works. So we're going to see some longer rotations and some workload manipulation, I think, in these next couple of weeks.
I think I lean actually a little bit towards Bieber. My reasoning is this. Both of them are slightly down in stuff after a major surgery and coming back. Both of them have shown really good command. So, and command is something that you want to believe, but you can't quite believe in the smaller samples, right? So, and we also saw Woodruff, like, how important was that bad start, the last one, Mm-hmm. But the big difference is that Bieber's arsenal looks basically the same as it did before with another pitch that he's added that's good. Whereas Woodruff's arsenal looks very different than before, and he's like 80% fastballs. And I don't, it just makes me nervous. Like, you're coming back from a big surgery and your stuff is not as good as it was before, and you're going to go 80% fastballs. Like, I'm a little bit more nervous about Woodruff. I know it's been good so far, but
No, that's fair. I mean, they're both to me in that line where you're generally you're generally using them as much as you can, and it would take a really tough matchup or some really good pitching depth not to have them out there.
40, I think 40 ranked the 40 ranks. So like if you're 39 and higher, I feel like I mostly want to use you. I almost never, unless I have a really great rotation and you're not a 2-starter, but would mostly want to use guys. Top 40, like that makes sense, right? That's like your top 3 starters, no matter the depth of your league, basically. Yeah. You don't want to like be mucking around your top 3 starters. You want good top 3 starters, and I think they're in that mix.
Yeah, they're probably that number 3 option for you in a lot of cases. Maybe a bit more of like found money, air quotes, because they're off the wire over the course of the season. But a lot of interesting names, though, picked up in a ton of leagues. So Bieber looked good coming back. I mean, talked about Samuel Basallo earlier. There should be plenty of playing time for him down the stretch.
What? I had a decision to make. So in TGFBI, I picked up Kyle Teal, who's also on this list as a pickup. I picked up Kyle Teal a while ago, and he's my second catcher, and I've been very happy with him. So I decided not to make that switch. And I didn't think that I wanted to have a third catcher on my team. I don't think anybody really wants that. So I just passed, and somebody bought Samuel Basallo unopposed for $17 in TGFBI. And
17
just
not
looked
bad.
wrong.
It's not bad.
I thought that was a good buy, dude. I thought that was a great buy.
I was like, I'd really be on that.
But I don't want to drop Teal. And the reasoning is they're both really good, but Teal has spent some time adjusting already. We've already seen him come up and do one thing, which was sort of like take walks and hit singles.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing him access his power better. And this is a guy who should be able to do both things. The projections are pretty neck and neck with the two of them. So maybe I made the wrong decision, but I decided to keep Kyle Teal over Samuel Basallo for the rest of the season.
I probably would have gone for Basallo. I mean, wouldn't have known the price at the time. So that's always a factor.
I didn't even put a make good. Like, I could have easily put like 18, 19, 21 bucks.
Even just a buck. Just be like, I'll do it for a buck if it was going to cost me nothing. I mean, I think there's more to like with Basallo, so that's the way to go. But I think Edgar Carroll's interesting too. The White Sox catching situation looks solid, and I think they can keep both of those guys. They've got
maybe that's a model for Baltimore too, where it's like they just decided to keep both those guys. Why not?
Yeah, Teal, I think it's easier to see it on the surface right away. I think when you look at the underlying numbers for Carroll this year, you see a 48.4% hard hit rate. It's great. With a low K rate too, 16.8%. So I think those guys.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the appraisal of his defense is a little better.
That Carroll's got better defense?
Yeah, I think so.
I think by scouting grade, Teal's is supposed to be better. Yeah, I don't know if this year, if there's a clear winner, like who they like better behind the plate. But I think they're both hitting enough to be in the lineup together. So I think that bodes well for the 2026 White Sox. Carson Williams is up. That's more news that happened since we last spoke. And we had a question about the type of player he's going to be down the stretch. I mean, Carson Williams is a great defender at short. So fills a clear need for the Rays, should play quite a bit in what's left of the season. There's power, there's speed, but there's also swing and miss concerns. 34.1% strikeout rate at AAA. This is a guy that struck out 31.4% of the time across all levels last year with or 28.5% last year, 31.4% the year before that. There's always been swing and miss with Carson Williams. But the question will be, does he do enough damage to still make it work offensively? And my guess is that the playing time will be there because he's a great defensive shortstop. That's going to give him a lot of chances to figure things out as a hitter.
I think there's a little bit of Colson Montgomery here.
But he runs. Like, that's a huge, like, for a fantasy floor difference.
Big difference, yeah.
Big difference in your categorical floor, where if it's like, if the swing and miss is so bad he's not getting to the power, he's still going to run when he has chances to run.
Also, I think his defense at short is better. So what you have with Carson Williams is a higher floor because he won't be moved off a shortstop. And they have elite they have elite bat speed, and then they have terrible bat to ball. And then Carson Williams runs. A little nugget that I had was that Zips before the season began was spitting out that Carson Williams would be like a top 5 player in 2026.
Yeah, it was.
And I remember like even Keith Law to begin the season had him fairly high, and then Keith Law had a 60 player update in the middle of the season, and Carson wasn't on it at all. I think he went from top 10 to not top 60, and that's just been, I think, what's happened across the league, where people said, well, 97 WRC plus in AAA 22. You do want to adjust that. At 22, he's a year younger, so that's more like, we remember we had that piece on adjustment that suggests that's more like a 120 WRC plus, true talent wise, right? So maybe this year is not as bad as it seems. And I know the batting average is not good. The BABIP was the worst of his career in the minor leagues. It doesn't look like a very exciting line, but he did hit 23 homers, did steal 22 bases, did play good shortstop, and seems to be in line to just be the everyday shortstop for the Rays going forward. So it may have a bad batting average. It may have that in common with Colson Montgomery. But both of them are intriguing young players based on some of the stuff they do. I just don't know. Like in 10 and 12 team leagues, they might hit 220, both of them. And so that's a little rough to hold on. There's not a lot of, you can lose your batting average really quickly in a 10 and 12 team league. Like your target is like 260. I mean, the league average is 240. You have a guy with 220 on your league, that means you might have to have 2 guys who hit 300 or whatever.
I think I like Carson Williams, though. And I think the main reason is like we sometimes forget the swing and miss problems of prospects that have slowly gotten better. So here's a random trivia question for you. What do you think Gunnar Henderson's AAA strikeout rate was when he got to that level as a 21-year-old? That was back in 2022.
27.
Yeah, 26.4%. And that came off of a year when he was young for the level. He had a 30.9 K percentage in 2021.
It's hard to know how much of an alarm bell that would ring for me. A little bit of one.
It matters.
I really look at 30. When it's like over 30 in the minors, that's when I'm like,
Right. And it's higher. Like Williams is worse. Like you do have to consider that. I think we want to know like where does he miss? Does he miss in zone? Does he miss on velocity? Does he miss on off speed? Like that is going to matter a lot. But ultimately, I think there is a good fantasy player here, even if it's a low average with good power and speed. That
I wonder if there's
tends to play.
Something too with like the elite bat speed guys in the minors, where like they're facing guys with velocity that's like under their bat speed. Could they get to the major leagues and make more contact than expected because everyone's throwing harder and their bat speed matches it better? That'd be so weird.
So
I want to be clear. That's just a theoretical
theoretical question. Can you have so much bat speed that it's less effective in the minor leagues than it should be?
I love that idea, though.
I love the idea. My initial gut reaction is no. I don't think that's what's happening here. But curious to see where it goes with Carson Williams here in the near future. We'll save some other names, that got picked up for later in the week, the intriguing ones. Drop us a note in Discord if there's anybody that you saw get picked up in your leagues. You're like, hey, why'd everyone chase Ian Seymour, for example? We'll dig into that on a future episode. Some other news. I do want to put
my finger on Braxton Ashcraft for a second. He did go in some places, but not for too much. And I want to say that he needs to be owned in all leagues.
Yeah, I think we tried to make the point
already said that before, right? Yeah,
we made the point that Ashcraft relatively isn't getting hyped the way some of the other pitching call-ups have been, and might be just about as good.
Bubba was good though. Did you watch? He struck a guy out 100 at the top of the zone. I was a little surprised. I think that his changeup might be a little better than his fastball. Than his slider. So that makes me a little bit worried. I have talked about this before. The righty changeup guy,
I mean, the piggyback day of Ashcraft and Bubba Chandler working in tandem, that'll get you to go to the ballpark in Pittsburgh, right? It doesn't take much of a reason. The PNC is a beautiful ballpark. So unless you are just so infuriated from being a fan by Bob Nutting that you don't want to spend money there, I get it. But if you just want to go and enjoy it a day at the park, like if those two guys keep piggybacking, that's a good day to go. If you can't go on a skiing day, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I did see Randy Rodriguez got held out of a save chance on Sunday with arm soreness. So if you're wondering why Ryan Walker got that save and had some interest this weekend, that's why. I don't know if we have any updates yet on Rodriguez's status, if he's going to require an IL stint. The other news we didn't get to at the top. So Chris Sale's coming back on Saturday. So know that going into the week. That's exciting. Jackson Merrill landed on the IL with that ankle problem. They're calling it an ankle sprain, so probably some more Gavin Sheets in the near future.
Hopefully there was a little bit of recovery time baked in because he was already missing games and he was borderline. So hopefully I would guess that's a minimum stay.
Yeah. Marcus Semien hit the IL with a left foot contusion.
That might be the whole season, dude. They said 4 to 6. I mean, 4 to 6
Unless they
weeks.
find the postseason, that could be it for Marcus Semien. So a rare IL stint for him, which he's been extremely durable. Very hard to do that, especially playing on the dirt.
Lots of other guys who, were 600 and 700 every year until they weren't. It's a wear and tear.
Yep. Dude. Jacob Lopez, forearm tightness after a meltdown Sunday against the Mariners, dude.
That sucks.
That's a rough way. Hopefully, for his sake, it's a minor sort of thing, but did some ratios damage on Sunday and left with an injury, which is not what you want to see in that game.
If you're borderline on him, I would drop. I feel like forearm tightness is not one of those things where it's like, and it's gone, and he's making his next start.
Right. I cut him in TGFBI because I have good pitching depth in that league anyway, and even if he misses just a turn or two, I need the roster spot, and I could try to add him back in later, but a disappointing turn. If that's the end of Jacob Lopez's season, I'd say it's still overall, by results, a good, successful turnaround for him, but a bump in the road for sure. I did see Nolan Shanuel ended up on the IL with a bone bruise in his wrist, so that's kind of a bummer as he tried to wrap things up this year with the Angels. I mean, I don't know if anyone's going to play more than care about.
Move.
Yeah, is there a singular person that you like that's going to play more as a result of that?
I doubt it. I think I saw the name and it was like, I'm not interested.
Nico Kavadas got the start at first base on Sunday.
He's a dude that popped and people were asking about him before he went to the Angels, and then I guess he got worse there. He's like a very much high walk rate, high strikeout rate, 3 true outcome slugger, but he's also missing. He was before this year missing the top end exit velos. But in AAA, Nico has a 112 max EV and a 46% hard hit rate. So you want a 3 true outcome slugger. If you're in an OBP league, there could be something intriguing there for you.
The other note I saw, and throw this out there as our last one here, 11 strikeouts, a career high for Ranger Suarez in his start over the weekend. That was against the Nationals on Sunday. Really good turn for him the last 2 times out. Both home starts, 21 Ks combined. And if you look at Rangers' velo charts, there were some concerning trends prior to these last 2 outings especially. So that could be some good news for the Phillies too, which becomes a bit more important again with the news we let off with Wheeler up top today. So
yeah, and suddenly, the 2 best velo days of his since April for Ranger Suarez. So
yeah,
I guess he got back on the horse, and he's becoming more important now with Wheeler gone. It's it's obviously the Christopher Sanchez situation at the top there, but they're going to be happy that Luzardo pushed his way through those tipping issues. And they're going to be happy to have Nola and Suarez, and they're still in a good spot. They would have been better spot with Wheeler, of course, but they are still a championship contender the way they are built right now.
Yeah, built for a deep run in October, and it certainly helps if Ranger Suarez is pitching like he has in these last couple of starts. We are going to go on our way out the door. A reminder, you can join our Discord, the link in the show description. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. You can find Eno on Blue Sky, enoceris.bsky.social. I am dvr.bsky.social. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Tuesday.
Thanks for listening.